Yes, we are live.
Hello everyone, can you hear me well?
You are a bit quiet.
Yeah.
I am so sorry, I will just talk louder then. Hello, I'm very happy to see you this evening. This is our first day of our update festival, and we are starting with an opening evening by Ellen Pearlman and moderated by Rasa Smite. And if you have comments, questions, let's use the chat room, or if you're watching us on YouTube, then please feel free to write comments on YouTube. We will also look at those if you have questions. I will give the floor to Rasa now. So thank you, Ellen, for joining us today, and we look forward to your masterclass.
Okay. Hello everyone. Happy to see already people joining. So I will maybe make some a bit slow introduction while people are connecting to Zoom. And I would like to give a bit also background information for anybody, like also the students who probably are for first time participating in this, as for everybody else. So iWeek is the festival. It was started in 2007 when this program was founded with the grant with the huge grant by Norwegian and financial instrument when program was founded. And festival was meant to be special international week when we meet with all the partners, and all students are working together with their colleagues from different other universities from different other European countries. And also since the iWeek title has been for quite a bit long time, so also the new team at MPLab, which is Maija, Demiter, Anna, Priedo, Peters, RIXC, and others. So they also have changed the title to Update for recent years. So because it constantly iWeek keeps updating, so that's very good idea. And also iWeek always has been included also for our master students, also as a kind of a mandatory week where no lessons other are planned, but just you are joining by your choice to different workshops. And then we also have, and for about this year's program, I will be shortly also introducing. You have these mandatory parts. Also, all the lectures are recorded, so your colleagues who cannot attend can also join later to the recordings and listen. Also, this update festival this year is taking place in a framework of Creative Europe's project Green Revisited, Encountering Emerging Nature Cultures. And also it is the very last public event of this project, because the project is closing now with the series of events this fall and publication which will come out next spring. So that's why among these the programs which I would like to highlight now here is maybe Maija can at the end of this discussions with Ellen maybe can also introduce the other workshops, but I would like just to say that today we have the first workshop, not workshop, but like a show and tell session by Ellen Pearlman, who will be introducing the master classes in the following days, 3 afternoons. And I also would like to ask everybody to join for the very final presentations of this green project, because all partners will be presenting the extremely interesting activities they have been developing over the past 2 years. So this will take place on Wednesday, 6 p.m. And Ellen's master classes will take place Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 4 p.m. So in a short kind of a break between the workshops and the evening programs, which start at 6. So that's about it. And now I would like to welcome also our today's opening keynote, Ellen Pearlman. And let me introduce her briefly. So Ellen is a new media artist, critic, curator, and writer who created Noor, a brain opera, the world's first immersive interactive brain opera in 360-degree theater. Ellen has a PhD from the School of Creative Media, Hong Kong City University, where her thesis was awarded with highest honors internationally by Leonardo Labs Abstracts. She is also on the faculty of Parsons New School University in New York and senior researcher assistant professor at Riseba University in Riga, also joining recently to Riseba and Liepaja joint master and doctoral programs. So we are very happy about it. A Fulbright World Learning Specialist in Art, New Media and Technology, and she also is a laureate of EU Vertigo Starts Art and Science program hosted by Horizon 2020, and also a 01 American Arts Incubator Fellow in Kyiv, Ukraine, and a contributing editor to performance art journal MIT Press. Ellen is also a president of Art Hack and director and curator of New York Volumetric Society. So all these diverse activities by Ellen will be very nicely presented in today's talk, also discussed, and also serving a background for the next 3 days. So you all could become quite updated in the field what is happening, because all these changes since about like a second wave of all immersive technologies about from 2016-17 has been so rapidly developing that, and so with the arrival of AI as well at such a large scale, so there's really a lot of things to follow. Okay, so I intentionally made it so long, so that because I was hoping that people are joining, and that's true. So I think by now already everybody is here. Okay, Ellen, welcome.
Thank you, Rasa, for that great intro. One thing that was left out that we forgot to add is I'm currently a research fellow at MIT. As well, like Rasa teaches at MIT, I'm a research fellow. I'm not teaching at MIT. I'm in a research group there, but it's been virtually during the pandemic. I want to say that I hope during this time I can find out about all of your work. So, you know, we're going to certainly reserve time for that. And tomorrow we can discuss whether we should look at 1 or 2 people a day, or we should wait till the end to look at everyone. And I'll discuss that with you tomorrow, because I certainly want to see what you're doing and I want to comment on it. My focus is going to be on artificial intelligence, computer vision, biometrics, and networks. Those are my areas of interest and there's a very specific focus I have. So some of these things may be very interesting to some of you, and some of them might be not what you're interested in, because I know there's a lot of VR and ecological work that you're doing, and this is not against it, it's just an expansion of it. So that's kind of what I want to say, is that those are the areas that I've been focusing on. So I'm going to share my screen now. Hold on. And we were testing this before, so let's go up to here. And slideshow, pretty from the start. Okay, you can see this, right, everyone? Yeah. Yes. So what you're looking at, and you'll all get to do this in the next few days, is pictures of me and my anime self that were generated by AI. Now, guess which is me and guess which is my anime self. I think you can figure that out, yeah? I think my anime self looks way better than I do. but we'll do this. You can all have your own little animes of yourself, okay? So I want to talk about what I personally am deeply interested in. I'm deeply interested in the idea of what is the post-human, and I don't mean theoretically, I mean realistically. I work with people and have worked with people who implant into their bodies computer parts, legally and certainly illegally, body hackers and others, cyborgs. I'm not saying you should do this. I'm very interested, obsessively interested in issues of surveillance and military control, because the more information you have and the more connected you are, the more you can be datafied. Okay. So and we're entering what's called a quantified society. I personally am running into this in Latvia because I have a QR code from America for my COVID, and no one in the stores in Latvia will accept my QR American code. So it's getting very interesting. So that again is an exact issue of control. I have a QR code, but it's just not the QR code that's used here. So that's getting really interesting. And again, is actually part of the argument of what I'm seeing happening globally. I got booted out. I don't know what happened. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna have to, I guess, go back into share screen. Sorry, that wasn't me. I just got booted out. I don't know why. Okay, so you can see that, yeah. I'm also interested in the new aesthetic, which means the new visual digital aesthetic, as opposed to just painting and photography and sculpture, what that means. And I'm also very conversant and comfortable around digital sensor interfaces, as many of you are, you know, with the work that you do. Phenomenology and consciousness are part of my brain research in neuroscience, although they drift into other issues of identity and identity building. And I will talk a little bit about emotionally intelligent AI and computer vision, which are my ongoing areas of research. So again, these are probably different areas than you're used to, but I think as a new media artist, it's really great for everyone to see this other aspect of new media. So when I think of these issues of a quantified society, what I'm fascinated by is who has the information and who has access to the information. And what are algorithms that can track things, including emotional states. I have also looked at motion, movement, and robotics. I've worked around, I personally don't do robotics pieces, but I've worked with a lot of people who do. And as I said, the body as an implantable cyborg is always an ongoing fascination of mine. So I'm going to start at the beginning, very quick, of what a BCI is, which is a brain-computer interface. It's a device that lets signals from your brain direct some activity. Now, the way you can think of it the best is if you got your hand cut off and you got an implant in your brain, you got a fake hand, and all of a sudden you can go like I'm trying to get in the, like that again, yeah? That's the easiest way to think of it. However, I did make, starting in 2013, I got very concerned about brain-computer interfaces and brain surveillance. So I made a opera in a 360-degree theater, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that here. That's a 360-degree theater. It's a wonderful place to work in. It's very immersive. And as you can see, the performer is down in the lower left, and she's wearing lights, so you can see her in the darkness. And her brain waves are triggering the video, the audio, and the libretto based on her emotions, which you'll see in a minute. But here you can see her holding hands with someone and like pink dots. And what she's doing is she's setting up a feedback loop between her body and the other person, and it's changing her emotions, which are then being projected on the screen. The other images you can see is she's triggering from data banks all these videos and sound, and there is a libretto you will hear, which she's also triggering, and they're triggering randomly, but they're triggering in each area, such as she's triggering frustrated sounds or excited sounds. So each one is within an area that they trigger randomly. I'll show you how the performance in a minute, but I want to just give a quick look at how it works. Data, which is your brain data, is acquired usually through internal or external means, such as sensors. It's pre-processed, certain features are extracted, they're translated into algorithms, which then can be translated into visuals. And you know this because, you know, Rasa's done pieces where you can take plants and make sound, right? You know this. Sounds, music, and many other things, thermal, tactile, and eventually scents and odors. Now, you're used to this pretty much, but maybe not from brainwaves. You know, you might be from other things. So I'm just going to show you a quick excerpt of this before we go on so you can see how this worked. This is from 2016. Noor Inayat Khan was the daughter of Hazrat Inayat Khan, who brought Sufism to the West.
Brought me up in Sufi tradition in London and Paris.
He died when Noor was 13.
My short life.
A man with a strong message.
My irresistible. My father.
The family moved to France. World War II broke out.
Aerial bombardment.
The world I knew changed all of a sudden with war. We were looking for a new home.
But Noor was not content doing nothing, and she joined British Secret Intelligence, training as a wireless operator.
It was a big responsibility, required self-sacrifice. I had to learn everything one by one.
My irresistible.
A few months later, Noor was parachuted behind enemy lines into Nazi-occupied France.
It was a very dangerous mission. They told me virus operate. I had to survive a lot more than that. I moved from one place to another.
I told them I was free. Why compassionate? Why where?
For a period of 3 months, Noor was the only communications link between Nazi-occupied France and the Allies.
My father's greatest message was not to lie. I became a secret agent instead. We were betrayed, but did not know by who.
100,000 francs for my soul.
The Nazis were at her door, broke it down, and caught her.
Gestapo captured me.
They brought her to Gestapo headquarters.
84 Avenue Foch, nightmare of resistance, where many people tortured and killed. Finally, I was there.
The Nazis put her in chains. And put her in rooms next to other prisoners.
We worked together. We sent messages to each other. We have to get out of here. You have to help me.
Noor escaped.
We were free.
I was born in Moscow to American Indian parents.
They did a search and they found her.
Once again, I was at the hands of Gestapo.
Gestapo captured me.
Tasted freedom only for an hour, but I had to keep trying.
This time, they wanted to disappear her into night and fog.
Concentration camps.
Nachtnegel, worst label you can get by Gestapo. It showed how afraid they are. From a little girl.
Concentration camps.
She was taken on a train to Dachau.
My short life. Arbeit macht frei.
One night, the guards took her out behind the crematoriums,
My short life.
and they took a gun and they shot her in the back of the head.
Throughout life's painful test. A thorny path to bliss. The life that I have is yours.
Okay, so the performer had to be trained for 5 months to work with a brain-computer interface on her head, and she had to learn how to move her body and not flip out all the time with her emotions. So I had the head of a contact improvisation school work with her and train her how to move, how to interact with people, how to touch them, how to gaze at them, how to move around them, so she could sort of be steady and work at this. However, you know, that was just the beginning of what I wanted to start thinking about. So last year, in 2020, I premiered ABO, which is an artificial intelligent brainwave opera, but it's an emotionally intelligent AI brainwave opera because I started getting very into building AIs and semantic analysis of AIs, which is the emotional content of an artificial intelligent being. So I asked some very simple questions. Can an AI be fascist? Can an AI have epigenetic or inherited traumatic memory, which I'm thinking about in a lot of ways now, very deeply. And that's the focus of my current research, which I'll talk about later. I wanted to build a mutual memory between a live performer and an AI entity, and I had to populate that memory. So this is dealing with questions of human identity, AI interpretation, some pretty serious issues. Now, in this piece, the character Ava, she wore a brain-computer interface, but she also wore a bodysuit of light reflecting her emotions. So instead of having those bubbles on the wall, she actually had them on her body. And that would be the equivalent of having your skin ripped off and your nerves showing. I wanted something very visceral like that. I wanted to know if an AI can produce fake emotions or imitate a human's emotions. The opera was based on the biography of Eva von Braun's 14-year relationship with Adolf Hitler. And I created what was called at the time a GPT-2 character, which is a certain kind of AI, and it ran lifetime from the Google Cloud. Now it's GPT-3, and I will be talking to all of you about what that all is in the coming days. And what about sentiment analysis, meaning what I wanted to analyze the emotions of a synthetic being, which I did, and you'll see it a little bit. So when I built the character, which is I built the AI, it took 10 months with a team of programmers. They needed to respond to Ava lifetime. There were always random answers, and they were displayed as colored lights, which you'll see. And at the same time, I would project the text so you could see what both Ava and the AI were saying to each other. And the AI, I turned text into speech, so the AI's answers had a voice. So I used something called GPT-2 at the time. GPT-2 only came out in April 2019. And I was already, using it like 3 months later, building something in it. And it came out from something called OpenAI, and there are different versions of it. I used the large version because OpenAI at the time was too scared to use the big version because they thought it was too dangerous to release upon the world, because then you could imitate almost anyone's speech patterns. But that has changed, and I'll talk a lot about that in my coming lectures as well. I also used lifetime the Google sentiment analysis. And sentiment analysis is very simple. If I say, I like you very much, I like you is positive, and very much is strong. So that's magnitude. So the positive, negative, and neutral, and the magnitude or strength are basically what makes up sentiment analysis. It's pretty simple at this point. And of course, it's getting more complicated, but that's kind of how it works right now. And you use this all with Siri, Alexa, all of it. It's analyzing your speech with sentiment analysis. So when I did this, the AI character, which was built with GPT-2, had to run in a virtual machine lifetime. The semantic analysis had to take place lifetime in the cloud. The answers had to come back lifetime. And the answers then had to be routed through video and lights and a translation and audio software lifetime. And the lag had to appear seamless, as if there was no lag, as if this was all happening with a real person. Eva's libretto, or what she said, her spoken word libretto to the AI was fixed, and that was taken from the biography of Eva von Braun, because that, you know, then the answers could be random from the AI. So one of the things, whoops, hold on, I'm going to go back. One of the things I'm very interested in, I'm trying to make this, is visual memory and human memory. And this is taken from a piece that Ai Weiwei did at the New York Armory, which I went to, that's me moving, but it was infrared light. And if you look, what's so interesting about this is the lag and the images that are left and the traces that are left, and then they disappear. You can see the infrared doing it. And to me, that's a lot like short-term memory, that you move, you do certain things, there are traces, and then they kind of evaporate. And, you know, humans have short-term memory, they have long-term memory, and how do you create something like that in an AI? And this is a very fascinating thing for me, so I'm having to go into the structures of AIs to really understand this in my own work. And that's what I'm doing now, but I just want to show you, this is a little bit of the AI, the emotionally intelligent, artificial intelligent brainwave opera that premiered at the Estonian Academy of Music last year. So let's,
The doctor said me from bleeding to death. Unless you said today.
The power of honor is the power of fear.
I told everyone I would marry you.
That was it. Everyone I loved, they came to me.
so what you're having here, you're going to see, is live human-computer interaction. This is a performance in which I put a brain-computer headset on Steve, who's the performer. Her body will light up with 4 different colors. The colors reflect her emotions. Red for frustration, green for meditation, purple for interest, and yellow for excitement. At the same time, her emotions will trigger data banks pre-selected of videos and audio. She will be in a spoken word libretto, which you will see here. And we have an AI that we created from scratch to be kind of sicko or perverted. And we will launch the AI to give responses to her libretto. So
We said with a mistress the burden is light, and everything is placed on the level of a gift.
The most important thing in life is sleep and dreams.
And the AI will light up in different colors because we're analyzing the emotions of the AI's response. So we're analyzing the synthetic emotions of a synthetic being. You will also see the AI here try to take the images from the performer's memory, which you will see, and try to make them work, but they're not because the AI doesn't know how to really make emotions yet. You wanted to
I can hardly think of anything. I am so distressed.
You do answer me.
I can't stand that if you like to think I'm a drinker. Of course, I've been wanting to ask you about my clothes. Does it hurt?
You had an operation to remove a polyp on your vocal cords.
And what were you thinking, feeling, and doing?
You say men are warriors. Women make family.
It isn't all that important. You don't have to live forever.
I only care about you.
But it is your job.
What is the fastest and least painful way to commit a suicide?
You are not going to let them kill you if you are suing.
So if you notice, sometimes the room would light up green or red or yellow. And what that meant is red was the AI speech was giving a negative emotion, green was a positive emotion, and yellow was a sort of neutral emotion. So I couldn't build an AI. I had to just use the background with those poles. I would have liked to have built a robot, but you know, there wasn't enough money in the budget to build a robot, because then I would have had to get robotics programmers. So I just had to use those poles. And you could see the TV screen on the floor had these glitchy videos where the AI was trying to imitate Ava's last memory. Now, for those of you who are technical and geeky, this is a little bit of all the routing I had to do. And you can especially look at the square on the left that says Google Cloud. And that's what the cloud had to do lifetime. It had to answer, and it had to do the semantic analysis. Then you can sort of follow this and see, you know, the ways that it had to go out to the screen, the lights had to be processed, it had to go from text to speech, the video had to be generated, you know, and plus Ava's brainwaves were also triggering the videos and all the sound. So all this had to happen lifetime, which was really quite the programming challenge, let's say. And how I made the character, how did I make a character? Well, I took 47 copyright-free texts and movie scripts, and I made sure the time frame was from the 1890s to the 1940s, which is the historical time of the character. And I made sure that the texts were about sexual perversion, horror stories, eugenics, books on castration, movie scripts from World War II, abnormal psychology. Like it was like baking a cake, you know? I put in all these mixtures together that were all horrible and perverted. And of course it had to be tested and the bugs had to be worked out. But, you know, the interesting point is if and I am not a computer programmer, though I can understand programming and work with programmers, if I can make a twisted AI so easily, and it is so easily because you know, it wasn't that hard to do. What does that say about all the AIs that are currently being made? You know, it's a question that I have, that I go to and present papers at engineering societies, computer science societies, as well as art and media events. And I start asking these questions. So something very interesting happened with this AI. And this really happened like a half hour before. We only had 2 performances. And a half hour before the first performance, the GPT-2 cloud service, the Google Cloud service got stuck, which I'd never seen. And so we kept reading the dialogue to the AI, and it only returned one word. It was stuck, and the only word it returned was the word evil. So I'm not kidding. It just kept going, evil, evil, evil. And I thought, wow, I really succeeded. I made an AI who understands what it is, and it self-identifies, but I can't use it in the performance. So we had to call the programmer at 2 o'clock in the morning in Singapore and reboot the Google Cloud service, which we did, and then fortunately it worked. But I was so both touched and horrified that the only word that the AI knew how to say was the word evil. You know, I was like, I really did well, sort of, I think. So I want to go into some of the other areas I work in, because some of this we'll touch on. Now, I'm not going to go very heavy into VR, but I want you to see that I work in VR. And I'm going to just give you little snippets of when the pandemic hit. I had to work with a whole bunch of artists in the Ukraine, and we made one deep fake project, one hand recognition for sign language project, and 2 VR projects. I'm just going to show you how we worked a little, just to give you a very quick taste that, you know, I sort of did this in less than 2 months, and we all had to do this, switch to virtual. But just to show you a little bit about the scope of where I can work.
We are to create some kind of a bubble, in some kind of a separate world in which this conspirology fan, which is represented by the chatbot, is existing. So when you enter this bubble, everything around you is crazy, and like this is a separate world.
Yeah, it will be this bot who would talk with us. He would chatting with us.
Alex, do you have anything that you brought into Unity that you can show me?
The space, the fractals, and the music will change with every new answer the chatbot gives.
We need to put the head of David Icke as a main point of this place, and I think after we add David Icke head, for example, it can be somewhere.
Yeah, that's lovely, and it's appropriate for the environment. It takes you into the experience, it guides you, but it doesn't overwhelm you. Well done, fantastic. So you're writing a dictionary of hand gestures in Ukrainian, for Ukrainian Sign Language.
We can now train with these gestures, lip motion, fire, air, space, earth, and water. And these all are different channels of energy, something like this. And we had an idea that we can teach program Mudra to recognize these fingers.
I take these 5 pictures and bring them to the art breeder and make transitions, style gain transitions.
Separately, focus students used to feel like basic math, and went on to trees abilities and became famous.
Showing that ray of light, this is where you can
get and like end the game. So you are born in the center, on the center sphere, and you have to travel through all this world to achieve that white line and like to get out.
Okay, so that just shows you that when we talk about your work, you know, I'll be able to have a very good understanding of it, because the areas in which I work in tech are, and I'll go into this now, are pretty wide ranging. So in New York, I run something called Art Hack, which I'll go into in a little while. But we were working with the US State Department and alumni ties from Fulbright with the Battery Dance Company, which is in New York and runs a dance festival, which has been going on for 40 years. And we were supposed to work on issues of immigration and migration. And then the pandemic hit. So in 2 months, we got together an international team from, let's see, they were from San Francisco, Toronto, Florida, New York, England, Estonia, Ukraine, and India. And we had them work with 2 dancers who were in a studio in New York City, and we built a server from scratch in a closet, literally in a closet. So all the dancers had to do was just touch the on button of camera and they could perform. And we manipulated the sound and the visuals as well as the biometrics. We worked with a neuroscientist, and we had who's been here in Latvia, Sean Montgomery. And we had the dancers wear biometric devices, and they performed in a studio as people all around the world were manipulating the sounds and the videos. And I'll show you a little bit of that, okay? So we worked a lot with network topology during lockdown. So I'm going to show you this as soon as I can. Yeah, here we go. In these dance-demic performances, dancers wear emotibit sensor devices on their bodies, live broadcasting their heart rate, blood oxygen, muscle contractions, humidity, and other biometrics. The first performance by Razvan Stoya draws on language to describe the perceptual experience of otherness. In the lower right is the actual studio. In the middle is his biometrics, and on the left are the words. And everything is being manipulated, all the visuals, live time, internationally. As well as the music. And it's being sent out of a server in Estonia. The next presentation, performed by Hussein Simko, examines an individual's journey of finding mental strength and resilience in the face of adversity and chaos. So the little flares, which will change color around his body, are his biometrics. So the second dancer was Kurdistani Iraqi, and the first dancer was Romanian. And all of this, the environments, the built environments took place live time, as did the sound from that entire team around the world. And like in the first video you saw, he was just in a blank studio. That's where the second dancer was also, but he didn't want the blank studio to show. So we worked a lot with experimenting with the possibility of a network, and we didn't live stream it on YouTube or Facebook. We live streamed it from Electron in Estonia, who built their own server for artists by artists. So none of the big corporations could tell them what they could or couldn't, what we could or couldn't put on it. We just jumped over the whole control of network streaming, and we made our own. And that's very important to me, to empower artists so they can not be shut down, you know? So that's part of something I do besides teaching here and researching at MIT and making my own work. I am also director of something called ThoughtWorks Arts. And ThoughtWorks is a company kind of like Accenture, for those of you who know what it is. It's a software development company, and they have 10,000 employees in 46 offices in 23 countries. But they also have a social justice mission. So I work with one of their developers, Andy McWilliams, who's a full-time ThoughtWorks employee. And under ThoughtWorks, we have an artist residency where we pick very difficult themes, which I'll talk about in a minute. And we give an artist $11,000, and we give them 16 weeks of high-end programmers from ThoughtWorks to help them make their project. We have ArtAhack, which is a collaborative working methodology. You just saw the result of ArtAhack in the two dancers. That's a rapid prototyping methodology that I created, and we use that methodology to work on creative projects. And then we have something called the Volumetric Society, which runs something called Hardware Hack Lab. And until the pandemic, we would offer free access to Leap Motions, VR headsets and equipment, HoloLens, and anyone off the street can come in and get their hands on it, and we give them dinner. But that had to end with the pandemic. Hopefully by next year, we can start it up again. So that way, you know, if you're either a student or not a student, or you're someone who's an artist and you're poor and you don't have a lot of money, you can just come in and hang out with people and use this equipment. So we really believe in doing that all the way up to the high level. So right now in ThoughtWorks Arts, we're running a network residency with 2 teams. And we're running it with an alternative art space in San Francisco called Counterpulse. And that's a site for performance. We've also, next year, we'll be doing work with CrypTech, which is crippled technology or disability justice technology by disabled people for disabled people. And we're doing that with Leonardo and the California Council on the Arts. And one of our residents for our volumetric filmmaking residency just received a Prix Ars Electronica award this year. So we keep pushing the envelope with the type of things that we're doing. So these are some of the themes for the high-end artist residencies that we've worked on. We've worked on implantable cyborgs. We've worked on breath and VR. This was when VR first hit. We were working on controlling it through breath. This was, in 2016, 17. The implications of forensic genetics, which means how you can tell about a person from their genetics and the use and misuse of that. With that, One of the people we worked with, believe it or not, was Chelsea Manning, who you may know as Bradley Manning, who's the person who leaked all those files to Ed Snowden and got arrested. So we worked with her with her permission and cooperation, her genetics before she was released from jail. She wanted to use herself as a way of breaking stereotypes with one of our artists in a project. We've also worked with facial recognition and AI, movement and robotics, the democratization of AI and the blockchain, volumetric filmmaking, synthetic media and deep fakes, reworking the network, which is our current residency, and cryptech for next year, or cripple technology. So this is the website of Artihack, and you can see we do all sorts of wacky things. We are incredibly diverse. We believe in an artist-centered model, always, always, always. And this has been going on since 2014. It's a collaborative co-working methodology, as I said. The methodology has been published in the Gates Foundation, How We Get to Next, their online magazine. It's been published in a book called Art Practices Around the World, and it's also been published in the Journal of Problem-Based Learning in Higher Education. So it's an actual real methodology of creative collaboration. Here's the website of the Volumetric Society, which is where we introduce everything to the public. And as you can see, we have over 4,000 members. Now, that doesn't mean 4,000 people show up to every meeting, but we have a lot of reach in the New York area, and we're well known. And this has been going on since 2010, the Volumetric Society. So we started very simply, and then grew it out to the artist residencies that it is now. So I'm going to just talk a tiny bit about my own project I'm working on now, because it's really in the research stage. And the next project I'm working on is something called Language is Leaving Me, an Opera of the Skin. So I'm going to work with epigenetic or inherited traumatic memory of cultures of diaspora. And diaspora is when you have to go out of your home country and spread around the world because you can't live in your home country anymore. I'm using GPT-3, which is the newer version of the model I used in ABO, and also new models of visual interpretation, which are called CLIP, VQ-GAN, and DALL-E. And what these do, and this just came out in May, it's so new, is this turns speech to visuals. So if I was saying to you, the sun is shining today, you would get a little movie of the sun shining today just because I said it. And that's what AI can do now. That's what AI has started doing now. And I find a lot of issues with that, so I'm making a piece around that. Plus, the soundtrack for this is going to be powered by my own biometrics, I think, and I'm going to use an AI composer for this. I'm going to work with AI to compose the whole soundtrack. So that's what I'm working on now, and I see it's going to take me about 3 years to do it, but I'm already in the process of doing it. So here's some of the information for me. And now we can discuss this a little bit. Okay. Here. I know that was a lot.
Thank you, Ellen. So that was meant to be a lot. So because we have 3 more days also to come back and discuss to many of these different topics. Okay, so please, if you have any questions, so you can write them in a chat, or would be the best. And we can also start maybe with some discussion with Ellen, but even maybe you can first introduce what will be tomorrow and Wednesday for discussion.
Yeah, let me, I'm trying to, okay. Hold on. I saw the message in the chat. Wait, let me just see what it
Yeah,
says.
Sabrina is asking.
Here, I can process an audio file and generate. Well, that, you know, can AI process an, yes, it can. What it can do is it can take that audio file, and remember, I'm not a musician, so I know a lot of you are, and I'm not, but I work with musicians. And you could say, I want something that sounds like this, and I'm going to talk about this in the next few days. And you can feed it into the AI, and then it will spit out something that sounds like that, but is very aware of copyright law, because music, there's a lot about copyright. And this program is there are many programs, but the one I'm thinking of has already been used to compose movie soundtracks. And I'll tell you the reason I'm interested in it, and this is really sad but true. I like working with music composers a lot, but what I have found is some music composers are real divas, and they either say, give me more money, or they say, I'm getting too busy. And when I was working on ABO, I had that happen to me. I had someone less than 10 days before the performance pull out. And I could not believe that someone did that. And I call it the hissy fit of the musicians. So I had to go through 6,000 examples of copyright-free music in 3 days to find little clips I could use for my performance. And at that point, I said, I'm never going to have this happen to me again. I'm going to use AI for my next piece. And that's why, you know, it's not my focus now, because I want to focus on the very intense visual part, but I'm going to revisit the AI part. And I can tell you that it isn't going to get rid of musicians. Musicians are going to use these tools, but what it's going to do is it's going to make, if you're an independent filmmaker and you want to use a music clip with a certain kind of music and you don't have a budget to pay for the rights of some music, or to pay a really good composer, theoretically, you can do exactly what Sabrina, what you said. You can say, I want it to kind of sound like this, and then upload it, and then it kind of sounds like that, but not enough so you can get sued. Because I don't know about in the EU, but in the United States, everyone will sue you if something even remotely sounds like something else. So, yeah. What kind of mind does it take to come up with all of this borderline sci-fi stuff? Well, I'll tell you something, it's not borderline sci-fi. And that's what's so shocking. So, you know, all the research that I did into neuroscience, and especially the experiments that the US military, the Department of Defense, and a special agency called IARPA, which is only dedicated to this, and the EU. So so the US started in 2012, the Obama Brain Initiative. The EU started right around the same time, their own 10-year brain initiative. Australia started one, Japan started one, Canada has one, China kind of sort of, but China's is not so good from what I've seen of it. And all the countries, especially the more industrialized countries, are racing to map the entire circuitry of the human brain. And it's very far advanced. In other words, basically, Japanese researchers are able to decode the images you dream when you're dreaming. That's already been done. American researchers can, in the laboratory, see what you're thinking of image-wise. This is all happening. This is all published research. There are videos out there. It's not secret. It's not spy. It's out there. So, you know, I started thinking about this stuff in 2013. And from 2013 to now, it's really grown a lot. So, you know, it's not borderline sci-fi. And if you know the technologies, you know, and I do know them, I can't make them, but I do understand them. You can sort of understand where they're going. And every 3 to 6 months, there's a new thing. Like when we go into, you know, I said the sun is shining and you get the little movie of it. Last week, Microsoft came out with its own version of that, except it's multilingual now. You know, it took Microsoft just since May to figure it out and come up with their own version of it. I mean, you know, they're
Ellen, can you hear us? You seem to have frozen.
quickly and solidly. But
We can see you again and we can hear you.
okay, sorry, you know, it's just that. So thanks. So I was saying it's not sci-fi, actually. It's based on incredible research. I published a 500-page thesis on brain research to go with the first project. So I read all the neuroscience texts, everything that was out there. I mean, it was based on incredible research. It wasn't based on reading science fiction models. It was based on reading science papers. So that's, Carlos, that's how I can respond to you. It's just that as artists, we're not reading these papers and we're not paying attention to this because we're thinking about other things, you know, but it's out there.
Cool.
Cool. Well, for some people it's cool. Okay. So any other questions before I go over a quick view of what I'm going to talk about?
Yes, there is a question in the chat by Carlos. What kind of mind does it take?
No, that's what I just addressed.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. So
okay, so some of the, and you know, we'll vary off of this a bit, but I'm going to tell you, I'll give you an idea of, we're going to talk about AI and deep fakes, and I'm going to have you make your own one. I'm going to give you a quick introduction because I'm at the MIT Open Documentary Lab, and one of our people in the lab made a great resource about media literacy in the age of deep fakes. So we're going to go over that. It's a really good presentation. We're going to go into the best of deep fakes, a compilation, and how they work. We're going to talk about deep fakes very intensely, and face swap, and runway ML, and these kinds of things, and we'll variate on it. I have some basic things, but we'll have a good discussion on it. Then we're also, the next day, going to talk about natural language processing and computer vision and GANs. We're going to go into art breeder, play form, what a GAN is, how to make your own anime GAN. You know, I showed you that first picture of me with the red hair, and I said, that's anime. You can make your own anime GAN. We're going to talk about DALL-E, which is another one of these versions of speech to visions, to vision. We're going to talk about what OpenAI is. We're going to talk about Lutheria AI, MuseNet, little applications called Night Cafe. We're going to talk a little bit how neural nets work. I'm going to give you like 8 minutes of how neural nets work. I'm going to show you some artwork by Quaola, which is this kind of work. And we're going to talk about, for 12 minutes, of what natural language processing is. So these are the overviews. And then, you know, I sort of devoted the last day to show and tell for you guys, because I really want to see your projects, you know. So how does that sound? Probably I'm saying words that you don't know what I'm talking about, right? Like,
sounds great.
What?
Sabrina is saying. Sounds
Yes.
great, Sabrina is saying. Sounds doable.
Because you see, even though you may all be working with ecological or VR, you know, or sound, these other developments are happening in the world of media art. And this is another aspect. And, you know, most of you won't use this in your practice. Some of you might, but in order to be media literate in the whole field, you know, like I don't work in VR, but I can certainly talk in VR and I understand VR, let's just say, and I don't personally compose in sound, although now for the next piece I might, but I can talk to sound people. I know what you're working with. I understand very clearly. So that's what I'm saying. For you to have a basic literacy about all of this is very important, even though it may not be your specific area of practice. It's what's going on in the field and you'll hear about it. And once we go over it, you'll all of a sudden it'll be popping out all over the place. And you go, oh, yeah, we went over that in class. So that's what I'm trying to do, is in 2 days, get you up to speed in other developments in basically what technically is computer science, but what realistically is media art. So that's the overview of what I'm really trying to do.
Okay, and Ellen, what about the different languages? You were mentioning one you have been working with. So is there anything which we would need to know technically more?
No.
I mean,
no.
at least as an information, just what's out there, or
no, because I'm gonna go over that, you know, and I'm gonna give you all some really fun apps to play with, where you can sort of make your own stuff, you know, and it's not so intimidating. You know, I'm bringing it down to the play level for a lot of this stuff. Like you saw that nice picture of me. I was actually quite impressed. I went, oh, I like my avatar. It looks pretty good. Oh, here's this. Can everyone, when we meet again, I'll talk, oh, the metaverse. I'll talk about that in a minute. I have a lot to say about it. Can everyone make sure you have one photograph of yourself, not a passport picture, although you can use that, of yourself looking straight, you know, because we can use that to make your avatar. And it kind of needs one of those. So some nice pic don't have a lot in the background, because that will confuse the app, because it's a simple app. Yeah. So everyone come with like just a simple picture of your face. Like sort of, Christiane, you have a nice picture there, but you're wearing glasses. So you may or may not want that in your anime character, you know? So bring it when we meet again, so you can do that. Now, what did I think about the metaverse? The metaverse is not new. It's been around quite a while, and in Artihack in 2015, we did a metaverse project. So first off, that is nothing that's new. The second thing is, you know, Mark Zuckerberg do you know where he's developing the metaverse? Did you read between the lines, any of you? Can anyone tell me where he's going to develop it for the next few years with the 10,000 jobs in the metaverse? Anyone know?
Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and everything else?
No. Where he's developing the metaverse. You don't know?
A physical location?
Yes, a physical location. He's developing it in Europe. He has chosen Ireland, Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, and Poland to develop it in. Now, before I go into why he chose those countries, I will tell you that I was just in Poland before I came here, and I made sure to get myself down to the hip, trendy little area called Praga in Poland, where the Google startup campus is. Because that's where Facebook is aiming, and I wanted to see it. It's nice. It's a really nice area. It's like a industrial area that's been rebuilt. Now, why is he doing this in Europe? Is it because it's cheaper? Not really. I mean, yeah, but that's not the point. The reason he's doing this in Europe is because he is in, and Facebook is in enormous trouble with the American government for all the things that Facebook has done that are wrong, right? So as he starts to develop the metaverse and he switches the focus to the EU, he will have to comply with EU privacy and data laws as he develops it. And the EU privacy and data laws are the best in the world. So if he develops the metaverse according to the privacy practices of the EU, when he finally releases the metaverse and starts implementing it, he can't be attacked like he's being attacked in the United States for privacy and, violations of, lots of things and inciting riots and all the rest. That's why he's doing it in the EU. Now, the thing, I'm going to see if I can find just now the project we did in 2015 in the metaverse. I mean, the metaverse it's really not new. He's just taking something that's been around for quite a while. And let me just see if I can bring it up. And I'll show you what we did in 2015. For a minute, but the other question about the metaverse that I've been thinking of, and I've been beginning to talk to Rasa about, is as the world is going into environmental degradation, why is the world looking for virtualization? So that's a question I have, but I'm just going to share the screen for a second. Go to the desktop. Let's see if I can do this. Hold on. It's going to be a little hard to do this. Okay, let me end this and let me bring this up. Here we go. You can see this? Can you see it? Metaverse?
Yes.
Okay, Artihack, Metaverse, 2016. During Artihack 2016, the Metaverse Art Gallery team created an art curation platform to be used by visitors around the world. The concept of the metaverse refers to collective virtual shared space on the internet. The VR platform used by the team in this project, AltSpace VR, is one of a number of platforms which aim to bring the abstract metaverse to ideal working prototype. The team's goals was to allow artists, galleries, and curators to import 3D art into the metaverse without requiring technical skills, minimalist 3D Unity. This was the team working from Unity 3D sketches and 3JS. And here, I'll show you just, I want to make sure that you have sound. Yeah. I'll show you just a tiny bit of the metaverse. How's that? From 2016 that we did. Well, I'll fast forward it to the metaverse, but this was our hack.
Okay. So our goal was to bring art into the metaverse. We're going to go over what the metaverse is in just a quick second. In terms of the roles, this is kind of my little baby, I guess, I've been working on for a little while, and I probably will be working on for a while. Marie here is the wonderful programmer who's been doing a lot of the stuff in the metaverse. So thanks, Marie, you're awesome. Maju is also one of the programmers doing a lot of the back end. Rachel on web design.
They did this over 4 Saturdays in the summer.
A lot of these projects didn't come out of thin air. Also, a lot of conversations with some other individuals. So Jack Pine in Ottawa, Chalon Salko in Toronto, and Angel Say in New York. The other huge inspiration that we have is MOVA, the Museum of Virtual Art. So MOVA is great. It's super forward-thinking. There's one thing, like MOVA is a museum. It's kind of a game that you go online and there's art everywhere. There's one thing when I was in MOVA that I found was missing, actually two things. It wasn't social, so I was in the art world alone. It was great that it was on the internet, but I was in there alone, kind of like a huge empty room, and it required advanced skills to get set up. So before we go further, let's talk about what is the metaverse. So it's a social space on the internet, specifically a virtual space on the internet that is social. I was born in science fiction, and it's become a reality with things like Second Life and other platforms now. There's a bunch of choices if you want to go into the metaverse. So maybe this is a slightly more accurate representation of the social metaverse. And what we want to do is bring art into the metaverse. In this case, we've picked our platform as Altspace VR. So Altspace VR is an extremely polished version of the metaverse. And also, more importantly, it has an extreme amount of support for all the levels of virtual reality. So you can look at the Gear VR, which is very low cost. It's $100. You can use it on a regular computer, or you can go as high as the Oculus Rift, the HTC Vive. It even supports Kinect, so you can scan your whole body through it. All right, so let's talk about the vision for the metaverse art. So if you're able to put art in the metaverse, things are going to change. You're going to be bringing in the kind of traditional video game assets, I guess, that we've been developing for years. The problem with that is you need a lot of skills. You need to know Maya, a bunch of things. It's not extremely intuitive, but you can also have generative art, so art that fills a room specifically that you don't even have to have an artist. You just have some code. So this is all generative, by the way. And then there's also specifically a new generation of 3D artists. So you see a lot of people, I'm inspired by this group on Facebook called New Aestheticians or New Aesthetics. And it's just a bunch of kids and they're doing all this 3D art. They're pumping it out there into the internet. It's all 3D art, but people are looking at it through, once again, JPEG, an image, right? So it's 3D art seen in 2D. So, you know, we've got all this 3D art, let's get 3D. The other type of art we're gonna see is traditional 3D scanned art or photogrammetry. So you have, you know, stuff that you see in the museum today, and you just scan it with photos or with a special 3D printer. You can also get a bit more funky. This is a project from a year ago. So you can see it's a 3D scan environment. There's also a 3D scan dancer. So it's getting a bit more experimental, I guess. The third type of art you're going to see in the metaverse is art that was created in VR. So you no longer have to learn all these tools. You just go in VR and you start playing with this new medium, which, you know, we don't even have a name for it yet. It's paint sculpting. It's not sculpture. It's not painting. It's a new thing. It's just a new medium. That was my art from last week. This is like better artists doing, you know, VR art. So you can see like this is the new medium. This is coming. So it's a new medium. It's going to have a new language. We shouldn't, you know, necessarily try to emulate what's in the museums right now. And ideally, it'll be disconnected from tradition. So what I'm thinking is a lot of performance art, GIFs, for example, like impossible sculptures. You don't have to worry about budget, physics, even reality anymore. You got to start thinking like, you know, how can we really break grounds with virtual art? Yeah, so what we wanted to do is a web platform to manage all the art and make it easy, a little bit like Flickrs, let's say, and then a VR interface where you are able to place the art. So we've got a whole website meant to kind of show you what's happening on the, you know, to upload your art, and then you got to bring that into VR in a much more simplified interface. So how do you deal with this interface in VR? This is kind of what we got. So it's kind of an iPad type scenario on your left, and then you select what you've uploaded onto the website, and then a very simple thing for modifying the art. Move, rotate, scale, delete. And the other thing is that the clear future is going to be that we're going to be using hand controllers. So instead of having a button for rotate, I'm just going to grab the thing, you know, stretch it, move it. You're not going to really need buttons very soon.
Okay, so I could go on, but that was in 2016, okay? So what I'm trying to say is the metaverse was not invented by Facebook under any circumstances. And it was not invented by Mark Zuckerberg at all. What he's done is he's looked around and he said, okay, everyone was on Zoom for the past year and a half. Everyone's going virtual. There's Mozilla hubs, and everybody's going to wind up having meetings and communicating in this metaverse, which already existed. So he went and took the word meta, which is also, there have been companies called Meta that he did not create, and I can go into those. The first AR glasses was called Meta. And I can, if you really want to get, I'm going to show you something else about Meta. This is going to blow you guys away. I want to show you, because, you know, I like to just jump around a little bit, but I want to show you something from 2012. Now, remember I talked to you about the volumetric society and how we have this thing where, you know, anyone can come in. So I'm going to do another screen share, okay? I want to show you this and you're all going to scream. I promise you. So first, can you see it? Hello?
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So look at the date on this, November 18th, 2012. You see it? Connect and Arduino projects at Columbia University, design, build, and blow their minds. So it was the Columbia IEEE, which is the Engineering Society, Connect and Arduino, and us, Volumetric Society. We went up to Columbia for this. Now, look at this sign. Now you can all scream. What do you see at the bottom of the sign? What's it called?
Meta Magic.
Right. Meta was the name of a Meta Magic because this was someone who was at graduate school at Columbia in engineering in 2012, was the name of an AR project that this guy Myron was building in 2012. So I want to show you this. I had blonde hair then. Okay. So here we all are at the hack. Now this guy with the red sweater, Myron Gritz, he wound up creating one of the first AR glasses, Meta, that ever existed. And then he got $1 bazillion in financing, and then his company collapsed, and then he sold it, and it got bought by someone else, and then it got resold, and now it got revived again. But I just want to show you how AR started, okay? Just a bunch of us at Hack, breadboards, figuring it out. 2012, working with the Connect to try to do this AR, AR thing. Just let's see. You see, it was, there's the guy with the teal shirt. He's also one of the Meta guys. And so this is what we were doing back then. And this was the beginning of AR. I mean, not for the whole world, but this little section of it. And I love to show, there's a long shot of what we were doing. I love to show this to people because they all talk about AR and AR glasses and, you know, all of this stuff. And yet in 2012, it didn't exist. So this is how it was kind of beginning to be born, through the Connect and through all these other things. And that's another one of the business people from Meta. So the reason I wanted to show you that was to show you that Mark Zuckerberg didn't invent any of it. I just want to show you it's been around for quite a while. So in what way did the two concepts differ, Zuckerberg's and yours? We're the artists, we just do it. And we, you know, we're not looking for, I would say that some of the artists I know have created startups, you know, not all of them, but some of them, but most just want to show in galleries and stuff. And Zuckerberg monetized it. You know, I mean, what I see is a lot of stuff is done in the art world at the same time or even before the startup world gets their hands on it. It's either running in parallel or it's running a little ahead. That's what I see. And the thing is, you know, I have which maybe is stupid, but I have no interest in monetizing it. I just want to make the art, you know. But I wanted you to see that this has been around quite some time. And I think it's really important to understand that. So I want to get back to the idea of the thing that I'm in, and I'd like to know what you all think when we talk, or even now. So what do you think the relationship is between environmental degradation and virtuality? You know? Russ Gant, yeah, he just spoke yesterday. I missed it. I couldn't go to it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, escaping to VR, enormous resources are needed. Yes, that's going to change. You see, that will change as tech changes. I mean, you know, in 10 years from now, it's going to be a whole new ball game, right? So the real question I'm asking is not about the resources of VR now. Think ahead. I want to understand, and I'm thinking this through very deeply, and Rasa and I are going to talk about it a lot, is as the lived environment of the biosphere is degrading, the acceleration of virtuality is happening. And they're happening at the same time. No one in VR is talking to anyone about the environmental degradation and the uses of VR. And no one in environmental degradation is basically talking to anyone in VR saying, oh, the planet's on fire. By the way, could you make something in VR? You know, I mean, those two areas, for the most part, aren't in dialogue. But the things are happening, like the right hand and the left hand, all at the same time. So I have my own thoughts on it, but I was wondering, what do you think? Okay, the resources. Yeah, but okay, so let me ask you this. Do you remember the first cell phones? What they looked like? Anyone have any idea?
Big.
Yeah, all you have to do is watch Pretty Woman. It's a big block chunk of a phone.
No, before that. Before that. Before that, in Pretty Woman, it was a suitcase that you carried around and you pulled a phone with a cord out of the suitcase. Okay. Do you remember? That was the first phone. Then it was the Pretty Woman brick, right? That came later. And so what are phones now? Even if you don't want a smartphone, you have to have one. You can't do things without it anymore. Right? So what's wrong with plastic trees? I'm not talking about plastic trees. I'm talking about the real environment degrading. The great fires in Australia and in California, the hurricanes, you know, global warming, and this push to virtuality, to VR, to look, we've all been, we're on a virtual world right now, we're on Zoom. I'm here in Riga right now, but I can't meet with you. I can meet with Rasa, you know, because that's one-on-one, but I can't meet with all you guys. No, it's not a new means of escapism. It's deeper than that, much deeper, much, much deeper.
Well, it almost feels like a struggle of like what we're willing to accept. You know, it's like, are we going to fight for the environment, or are we just going to recreate it to somehow have the same experience? I don't know. It's neglect, or it could be.
You know, if you step back, Okay, we're not creating Eden at all. But if you step back, really step back, you know, and look at, let's say, history for the past 100, 150 years, right around the time of the Russian Revolution, right around that time, 1910, 1917, the turn of the century, the world, or a lot of it, was transitioning from an agricultural to an industrial world, right? And the transition, Marxism wouldn't have happened if there wasn't industrialism, right? It couldn't have happened. The worker class, the capitalism. Before that, it was just farms, right? So that was a huge change. Then you had post-industrialism, right? And with post-industrialism, you got the rise of telecommunications. And telecommunications, does anyone know why the internet started and where it came from?
It was originally meant for scientists only, I believe.
Nope, before, yes and no. The internet was created by DARPA in 1962. The Defense Department in the US military. And the internet was created as a direct response to the Cold War and the threat of nuclear annihilation. And it was created so two nodes, and the thing is, yes, it was created by scientists at universities, but they were funded by DARPA. So it was created to have a back channel of communication in the event of a nuclear war. So the internet arose out of the Cold War and out of the nuclear bomb. No, it was not created by CERN in Europe. CERN in Europe was onto it, but they did not create it. It was created by DARPA, which was then ARPA. It was called ARPANET. And CERN came in very quickly, but they didn't create it. How do you define the internet? I don't know. How do you define it? I think we all know what the internet is. It's node-to-node communication of information. And actually that backbone, okay, the www didn't even show up till 1993. And I remember because I was there when it showed up. So the internet, the real internet, still exists, and it's called IPv6. What we're talking on right now, yeah, but that's the protocols, but the use of the web bopped up in 1993. The protocols had to exist before the implementation, but people didn't start using the web until 1993. You know, of course, there were protocols in the lab, but, you know, they weren't widely deployed. And here's the thing. So when you have IPv6, which still exists in I don't know what it's called in Europe, but in Canada, it's called MBone. You know, it has different, no, it's called Canary Net. In the United States, it's called MBone. It's high-speed fiber optic research networks. And that IPv6 is a research and military only backbone. What we're using right now to talk to each other is called IPv4, or Internet Protocol version 4, and that's the commercial version. But there's a much stronger internet called IPv6. Well, that's the question. Would it, if there, well, I don't know, it depends where they strike, but IPv6, whoops, 6 and IPv4. So we're using IPv4 now, all of us, and that's what we all work off. I'm not talking about satellite technology, and I'm not talking about telephone technology. I'm talking about the internet. And so if you look for IPv6, indirectly it does. They create indirectly, but it's not the reason that it exists. It's a question of its addresses run out, but that's secondary. IPv6 has been around for a very long time. I was working with it in 2010 when I was working with the Canadian Research Chair of Telematic Art in Canada, and we were working directly off MBone and also off CanaryNet in Hong Kong, the IPv6 network there. And it was research only, and you couldn't get your hands on it for the most part. And it's the same thing the military uses. So IPv6, or just look at backbone, what you call, backbone, IPv6 backbone. And that's not something that any commercial vendor can get their hands on. All right. As I said, it's research and military only. And so that internet is the direct result of DARPA, and the IPv4 is the commercial application of what happened with DARPA. But there's still the DARPA network, which is IPv6, that you probably either don't know about or haven't gotten your hands on. And Latvia might be part of that IPv6. I don't know. Yeah, that would be a good idea. History of the internet. Bruce Sterling certainly knows his stuff. So what I'm trying to say is things like the agricultural revolution to the industrial revolution, the beginning of the nuclear age created the internet. So I'm looking at VR a little more on the level of environmental degradation as a movement of virtuality and the movement of the virtual to the destruction of the habitable. And I don't know, these are questions I'm asking, I don't have answers, but I'm seeing this happening. And also the same thing that's happening is simultaneously is the billionaire space race. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, that's also happening at the same time, as is the rise of AI. So all these things are happening now. And the thing is, when you're involved in the now, you don't really think to step back and figure out why is the now happening like it is. You only do that when you look back. So I'm asking the question, why is the now happening like it is? And I don't have an answer. I really don't. It's a question I want to consider, and Rasa and I are going to talk about because I want to have conferences on it, actually. Because I don't have an answer, but I see it and I understand it. I just don't know why. I have ideas. Part of it is speed. Part of it is miniaturization. All of this are ideas that I've been thinking about, but I don't have answers for. So when you talk about what Mark Zuckerberg is doing with the metaverse, the meta, which was around since 2012, and the metaverse, which I showed you in 2016, this isn't new news, at least not to me. Maybe big news in the world of, oh my God, Facebook is now Meta and it's a new idea, the metaverse, but it's not. And I just proved it to you. Do I like where we're going? There is no like. There's no like in what I see at all. And there's no dislike either. What there is a deep I need to have a very deep understanding of why and what it means, not like or dislike, but why and what does it mean? And where are we going and how can we avoid huge mistakes? The nuclear bomb didn't just show up. I mean, it all began with Marie Curie, right? And she found the raw materials, which then became part of the nuclear bomb. So nothing comes out of nowhere. It comes out of precedents, and it comes out of changes in society and changes in technology. So I need for myself to look deeper, because I know I'm onto something. I just don't have the right framework to understand it about virtuality and environmental degradation. But I will have it. I'm sure I will at the right time. And I just wanted to see if any of you had any like ideas on it, not as Eden, you know, although that's a nice idea. Let's see. Looks like never any human or progress and facing the consequence of slow. Okay, what I'm seeing, especially in Europe, actually, I'm not seeing this in the United States, is there's this tremendous longing as there's this acceleration for a return to the farm and the pastoral. You're not seeing this in America. Nobody wants that, but in Europe, I see it a lot. And as it becomes more virtual and it accelerates, people are saying, I want to just get rid of it all and go back to something or other. And then if you say to them, so are you going to give up your internet and your phone? I mean, how many of you are willing to do that? Of course, you're in new media arts, so that's kind of like a ridiculous question to ask in a way. But, you know, the question is, I don't see it as return back. The question is how to make it sustainable. You know, you're not going to all of a sudden wipe the planet out and get rid of cars. You're not going to get rid of jet planes. You're not going to get rid of trains. You're not going to get rid of wireless technology and phones and the internet. It's just not going to happen. So since it isn't going to happen, what are you going to do? That isn't utopia. I mean, how are you going to really deal with this? And what are steps, real steps to be taken? And these are questions I'm asking with AI because that's my personal focus. I'm not as environmentally sensitive as all of you are. You know, I grew up in New York City and I live in New York City. You know, my tastes are not environmentally sensitive. That doesn't mean I don't care. It's just like if I go to the countryside for an afternoon, that's about as much as I can handle. So it's not my thing. You know, it's like, oh, that was nice. Can we get back to the city, please? You know, but for those who are, if you want to slow the run, how are you going to do that? What's your realistic solution? You know? And my realistic solution is not necessarily to slow it because I don't think it can be slowed. I think my realistic solution is more about transformation than slowing. You know, let's put it this way. You know, I went to, there was one, I'll give you a very simple example that you can all relate to. There was one Flying Tiger store, I love Flying Tiger, in New York, and it closed during the pandemic, and I was heartbroken. But there was a Flying Tiger in Poland, and there's Flying Tigers here. So I've been going to the Flying Tigers. And what I've seen is in the houseware products, now you can laugh, but in the houseware products, you know those green scrubbers you have in your kitchen? You know, where you don't want to use a sponge, you want to use something a little heavier. So those green plastic scrubbers. At Flying Tiger, all of a sudden, they have those scrubbers, but they're made of coconut husks. And you can buy them. And I thought, wow, why didn't anyone ever think of that before? That's something that's thrown away, that can support people, that's just as good, that's you can compost it. So that's a solution, right? Right? Just to scrub your pots and pans with these coconut husk scrubbers that they sell now in Flying Tiger, which I have not yet seen in the United States. Okay. The other one, I'll just give you one example. Now, most of you, or at least the women, I don't know if the men have, I call them poofies. You know, you put your shower gel on it and it's not a sponge, it's like a poof around thing. I call them poofies. And you wash yourself, right? And they're made out of plastic. But Flying Tiger now has poofies made out of organic cotton, woven. And I thought, wow. So it's not bleached cotton. I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. Two little things, a sponge and something for your shower, right? And you can say they're really stupid, they don't mean anything, but I think they mean a lot. Because if you don't start with the most basic things and grow it outward as you're trying to change the law and carbon emissions and all that, then the change can't happen. So those are two really small, realistic things you're doing in Europe that I don't see in America yet. Okay, so how's that for reconnecting with nature using coconut husks to clean, you know, and they're pressed in a certain way so they make a sponge. But how's that for an example?
Fantastic. That works.
Yeah, I know. So maybe you should go become a designer for Flying Tiger, you know? I mean, I don't know what to say. But that doesn't get back to the big question, which again, I have no answer for, of the overview of the age. Look, I'm going to be dead in a certain amount of years because I'm older than you guys. But all the kids who are now 10 years and older, they're going to get the full impact of whatever we're starting to go through now. So what is it we're starting to go through now? What have we just seen? What does it mean for us? And how is this shaping the relationship between environmental degradation and virtuality? Because we're in the middle of it right now. We're at the start of it and we can't see it because we're in it. But how's that for a question to think about over the next 2-3 days? You don't have to come up with a great answer. And if you don't have an answer, that's okay. But that's my open question. You know, what is the relationship, the real relationship, like the internet started because of the nuclear bomb? So what's the real relationship going on here behind everything else that's moving the world? Just like the atomic bomb, the atomic age moved the world. What's going on now? Really going on? I think about things like this, you know? I mean, I really do. And I try to make works, but for me, my works are mostly about AI because that's the area I'm more, you know, fluent in, and I find easier to work in for myself. So I'm asking, I will talk about the implications of AI and memory, which are profound, very profound, how that's going to affect human society. And I can talk about that in the next few days also. So any last thoughts? I mean, you guys are all younger than me. It's your generation that's going to like get this square in your lap, right? The ball is tossed to you.
Okay, so there are next 2 days to answer it now.
or if you have an answer, you know.
Or think about
cyberpunk media. How does it remind you of cyberpunk media? In what way, Carlos? Yeah, but they're all real now. All of it's real. You know, it is cyberpunk, but like I don't read cyberpunk, which is kind of weird since I work in all these texts, but I'm very ignorant about cyberpunk, quite honestly. You know, I know it's a thing, but it's not my thing. You know, Star Wars is about as cyberpunky as I got, I'm sorry to say. Okay, so I can tell it's like, yeah, what does this all mean? Well, you know, think about it for the next day or so, or two.
It's all I think about because I think about how I'm going to save the world for my kids.
Yeah, well, sure. How are you going to save the world for your kids? You know, go to Flying Tiger and buy those coconut scrubbers for a start.
I don't think that's going to do it though.
You want to know something, though? I can tell you that the smallest step matters.
Right.
It's not going to change the world, but behavior changes in a society. You know, like think about how behavior changes in COVID, and look at who's wearing a mask and who's not, and who will get a vaccine and who won't.
Yeah, but I don't think that says everything though. You know what I mean? Like, I'm vaccinated and I still wear a mask. I mean, that's, yeah.
No, but what I mean is that, what about the people who believe vaccines are fake? And also there are people, you may not have this in Latvia, but I can promise you we have it in New York, who just won't wear a mask at all. And what happens on the New York City subway, if you say anything to you, they take out a razor blade and they slash you, because that's New York, you know? So what I'm trying to say is there's a large part of the population that doesn't even want to deal with a cure for the pandemic that's available to them, because it has to deal with a type of environment they're not comfortable in. I think that's the best way to put it. And what I like to think of lockdown and the pandemic is it's a dress rehearsal for climate change. This is the appetizer, what we're going through. Before the main dish.
Okay.
I'm not being pessimistic, I'm being realistic.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen. But I think that's really like a great point, nearly to finish discussion and leave it a space in our heads for thinking now for next couple of days, especially.
Yeah, right. So you can tell we're going to have fun the next 2 days, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're going to have a good time. We're going to really go places. We're going to be like Star Trek, where no man and woman has gone before.
It will be intense. That's about what iWeek is about. And tomorrow morning you have at 10 o'clock already first 2 workshops. I see, it depends on which you are subscribed, and the other starts a bit later on Wednesday. But more or less by the afternoon you are done with the workshops. So everybody is kindly invited to join 2 masterclasses, these sessions with Ellen at 4 p.m. Yeah, until 5:30, intense, like Carlos is writing. And then at 6, so there are the evening programs again.
Yeah, and I know you can get zoomed out, because I get zoomed out all the time, trust me. But this is a little different because we're going to be working with each other. The rest of it isn't just blah, 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 you know?
Yeah, everybody should get on Zoom at 4 p.m. Yes, please contact Rohir and fix your account problems timely. You have all day tomorrow.
Yeah, because at the end of this, I want to see your work, and I want to spend a lot of time going over your work too. I mean, it isn't just going to all be one way, okay?
Yeah, because I see also I think almost all master students from Riseba and Liepaja also are here, and they definitely have things to show.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And I will tomorrow, when you come back, the question is going to be, and I'm going to ask you this at the beginning, should we end a little early and go over 1 or 2 projects, or should we just barrel through for 2 days and then have the presentation of projects at the end? So let's talk about that tomorrow, okay? Mm-hmm. That'll be something we can answer tomorrow. You don't have to answer it now.
Yeah. Okay, Ellen, thank you. Thank you very, very much. And thank you. And close. And yes, and a couple of last of words by Maya. So what you invite for tomorrow for the workshops about the morning programs?
I will definitely invite you to join the workshops, because the workshops are not overlapping with Ellen.
No.
So you can join any one of the workshops, and we will just wait for you here in Zoom, in the same Zoom system. You can also hop between workshops and try to do absolutely everything. I challenge you to do so. We have a very exciting that's it's a 4V software that can maybe give you new job opportunities as a VJ. And then we will also have a workshop by Roberto, and he will be building a sound installation together with participants. And later during the week, we will also have a workshop on motion tracking. So a lot of interesting stuff. So please join any of the workshops. Don't have to apply, just have to show up. And we'll be all here, and we'll be all using the same system. And once you are in the system, you also have the option to watch all the recordings. So if you miss something, don't worry, you can come back and see all the recordings here. Thank you, Ellen, and
Hey, thank you.
I will most definitely also join you during the week. And I'll try to get on the same wavelength of this thinking about digital world, because I'm one of those people that prefer growing plants over sitting in Zoom. I guess I'm a true European.
Okay, thank you. See you
Okay.
tomorrow.
See
Okay.
you. Bye. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you so much.